There's something deeply disturbing about seeing yourself when you're not supposed to. Doppelgangers have haunted our nightmares and folklore for centuries, but today we're diving into some of the most spine-chilling true stories from Reddit, where people came face to face with something they should never have seen. So find a cozy spot, settle in, and enjoy. If you like the stories, please subscribe for more. This happened to me about 2 years ago, around late December of 2020. I was 19 around the time. Me and my girlfriend were at my grandparents' place, having a couple drinks out in the garage until it got too cold to stay out there. It was one of the coldest nights of the year, and there was a bad blizzard that night. We both went back to the house around 2 a.m. She went into my room, and I went out in the kitchen to cook something for us in the oven. I was on my phone standing alone out in the kitchen when my grandma and my girlfriend both walked out into the kitchen together. It was a bit strange, because my grandma is never up that late, and it was even stranger that my girlfriend came out at the same time. The first thing my grandma said to me is, "Don't go back out there tonight. On a night like this, people lose their lives." I was a little bit freaked out because I was just about to head back out to the garage to grab something. I never told anyone I was going back out. My girlfriend and my grandma just stood there staring at me with the weirdest expressions I've ever seen, with very unnatural smiles that didn't seem right. My girlfriend then walked over and gave me a hug. When I grabbed her, she was ice cold. I commented about this, and when I mentioned how cold she was, her expression changed. Her smile faded, and she looked up at me with really serious, sad eyes and didn't say anything. There was something else I noticed too. She smelt like a campfire, an earthy, smoky smell. There wasn't an explanation for this, and she didn't smell like that earlier. I swear at that moment I got chills all over. There was something so off about it all, but I couldn't put my finger on it. My girlfriend whispered in my ear, "Don't go outside tonight." She walked back over to my grandma. She stood beside her with her head down and a serious expression, while my grandma was still staring at me with that weird fake smile. It was so bizarre. I just stood there speechless. The wind began to literally howl outside. My grandma turned and looked at my girlfriend. "Don't mess with black magic," she said. My girlfriend didn't say anything. She continued looking down. I stood there confused. My girlfriend looked up at me. "We have to go now," she said. They both started walking away. My grandma looked back at me for a second. "See you on the flip side," she said with that weird smile. I got another chill through my whole body when she said that. They turned to corner and left the kitchen. I stood there for a while. I didn't know what to make of it all. I decided not to go out to the garage. I'd go out and get my stuff the next morning. I stayed out in the kitchen for another 10 minutes until the food was done. I went back into my room with it. My girlfriend was in bed laying down. She got up and we put on a movie. I guess I was quiet because she asked me what's wrong. I told her everything was okay. It took me 10 minutes to say something about it because, to be honest, I was still frightened by it. I turned to her and asked why her and my grandma came out to the kitchen. The second I said that, my nose started bleeding. I ran to the bathroom and got something to stop the bleeding. When I went back in the room, I told my girlfriend everything. As you can guess, she said she never went out the kitchen, and she swore on someone's life. She was in the room the whole time. She also didn't smell like smoke anymore. We went and woke up my grandma right after, and my grandma said the same thing. She actually thought we were trying to mess with her, and she didn't believe me. We were so freaked out after this, we had trouble sleeping for the rest of the night. The part that really messed my girlfriend up was when I told her about how cold she felt and how she smelt like smoke. The only explanation we could come up with was that maybe if I went outside that night, something bad would have happened to me. Maybe the spirits of dead relatives watching over me came to me in that form so I wouldn't be scared and they could get the message through. The last part of it that made sense was the part about the black magic. My girlfriend just got a book about witchcraft from her friend the week prior. My girlfriend never opened the book again after this. She took what was said as a warning. To this day, I still get chills thinking about it. In the spring of 2000, I worked at a rehabilitation center for young offenders. I was on the night shift, starting at 9 p.m. One evening, when I arrived at work, my supervisor met me with a confused expression. He asked what I was doing there, and I replied with surprise, saying that I was scheduled to work that day. He mentioned that I had called a few hours ago to report in sick. I looked at him, confused, and explained that I hadn't called anyone, suggesting it must have been someone who dialed the wrong number. As the evening went on, more and more colleagues arrived at work, and everyone seemed to find my sick call a bit strange. But there was a lot to do at work, and soon we had forgotten about it. I was sitting in the control room, as I usually did. The control room is the hub for all the surveillance cameras, and where we monitor all doors, phones, and similar things. After doing some paperwork and getting ready for the night shift, I glanced through the notebook by the phones and saw the note about the sick call. It said that I had called at 10 to 7 and said that I had caught a cold while cleaning up around the house after the storm. It had indeed been very windy that day, and the weather outside was harsh, but I hadn't had anything to clean up. It was really strange. The supervisor came into the room, and I put the paper down. He and I were friends outside of work as well, and he sat down and we exchanged a few words about how odd the whole thing was. Eventually, I thought I should even call home and tell my girlfriend about it all. I picked up the phone and dialed the number. After 2 rings, someone answered. A deep voice said, "Hello?" I sat in silence for a few seconds, not knowing what to say. I glanced down at the phone's display to check that I had dialed the correct number, and I had. A second later, the man with the deep voice said, "Hello?" again. I replied, "Hi, who's this?" The voice answered, "It's Liam." I started to hyperventilate. My name is also Liam. Almost hysterically, I half screamed, "Where is Anna?" The voice replied, "Anna is sleeping. Who is this?" I dropped the phone on the desk, stood up, and as I ran out of the room, I told my supervisor that he had to take over because I needed to go home. Behind me, I heard him pick up the phone, say, "Hello," and after a short pause, shout, "What the hell?" I rushed out to the car and drove home, well above the speed limit, with a million thoughts racing through my head. Once home, I burst through the door and was met by my surprised girlfriend sitting on the couch watching TV. She looked at me and asked what I was doing home. I asked who was there, and she said she was alone. After searching the apartment and having a rather long conversation with my girlfriend, I called the rehab center back to explain what had happened, but the phone line wasn't working. There wasn't even a dial tone. I got back in the car and drove to work again, and once there, I met my supervisor. He seemed uncomfortable and asked me what the hell I had done. I asked him to explain, and he told me that what he had heard when he picked up the phone was a person with my voice. He got scared and hung up. A minute later, while he watched my car leave the parking lot at breakneck speed, the phone rang again. This time it was me. He said I sounded angry and told him I was sick and didn't have the energy for people to keep calling and messing around. I stared at the supervisor in shock as he explained this, and then I did my best to convince him that I had no idea what was going on. Then we got back to work. The next day, my girlfriend and I discovered that the phone lines in our neighborhood had been knocked out by the storm, and our home phone was dead. This is by far the strangest thing I have ever experienced. I was half asleep, mindlessly staring at my notes, trying to cram for tomorrow's exam, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Annie. I smiled. Of course, she couldn't sleep either. "Hey, are you awake?" I stretched and replied quickly, teasing her about the wind. Annie always hated bad weather, and I wasn't surprised it was keeping her up. We started chatting back and forth, her humor cutting through the fog of my study-induced exhaustion. But after a while, something in her messages changed. "I think someone's outside." At first, I didn't think much of it. Annie often got worked up over little things, and I'd always tease her about being paranoid. But when she said she heard footsteps, actual footsteps, I paused. I told her to stay inside and lock the doors, but the tension in my chest started to build. Then she said something that made my heart stop. "I see him. He looks like you." "What?" I blinked at the screen, trying to make sense of what she was saying. She was looking out the window, and there was someone in her garden. He was wearing a jersey, my hockey jersey, with my name on it. That wasn't possible. I typed back frantically, "Annie, I'm at home. That's not me." But she didn't believe me. Why would she? Whoever, whatever was out there, had my face, my name, my clothes. She could see the damn jersey, the one I kept folded in my closet, the one no one else had. How the hell could someone be outside her house wearing that? My heart pounded as I kept texting, trying to convince her it wasn't me. I wasn't in her garden. I wasn't messing with her. Then she said something that made the room spin. "It's smiling at me, David." I felt sick. Annie was alone, and there was someone, something, that looked like me standing outside her house. She described it digging in the garden, searching for something with its hands. She thought it was some kind of sick joke, like I had set it up. But I hadn't. I would never do that. "Stay inside. Don't move," I typed. She said it was coming closer. She ran and hid, grabbing a knife from the kitchen, and I just sat there, helpless, typing messages as fast as I could, telling her to stay hidden. Every time I saw the 3 little dots showing she was typing, I held my breath. What was I supposed to do? Then it got worse. "David, it's inside the house. I called the police." My fingers trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. They said they'd be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Annie didn't have 20 minutes. I tried to keep her calm, but she was in her closet, barely able to hold her phone because she was shaking so hard. "It's calling my name," she typed. "It sounds like you, David, but it's not you. I know it's not you." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Why did it look like me? Why did it sound like me? She was begging me to make it stop, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what was happening. She said it was coming up the stairs, slowly, its footsteps heavy and wrong, like it wasn't used to walking. I thought I was going to lose her. I thought whatever that thing was would find her in the closet, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. But then, she said it stopped. It's not moving anymore. Relief washed over me. I told her to stay hidden until the police arrived, but then she said something that chilled me to the bone. "David, how do I know it's really you I'm talking to?" Before I could respond, the screen went blank, with just a short message in black text. "Annie has logged out." We were staying in a fancy hotel for my cousin's wedding. I was 12. I woke up to a rough shove, assuming my sister was waking me up. It was early morning, around 7:30. Groggily, I stepped out of bed and was hit with the strong smell of hairspray. I could hear someone taking a shower, along with hurried footsteps and the repetitive spritz of a hairspray can. I walked over to the dresser and pulled out a blouse and skirt. As I got dressed, there was a knock on my door. I pulled my top on fully and opened the door, but no one was there. I felt a bit freaked out, but I figured it was just my imagination since I had been half asleep. I left the bedroom, and as I passed the bathroom, I heard the shower turn off, followed by my dad's heavy footsteps. At the end of the hall, I could hear more spritzes coming from another restroom. "Hey, Mom, I need to pee, and Dad's in the other bathroom." My mom responded with a cheerful, "All righty." It was definitely her voice, but all righty wasn't something she ever said. I rolled my eyes and walked away, deciding to wake up my granddad, since I could hear him snoring loudly in the room he shared with my parents. I wondered why they hadn't woken him yet, but when I opened the door, I was shocked to see the room was empty. At that moment, all the noises, the shower, the footsteps, the hairspray, stopped. Panic set in, and I ran downstairs to find my parents, granddad, and sister already eating breakfast. I checked my watch and realized it was already 10 o'clock. My mom stared at me as if she'd seen a ghost. "What?" I asked. My sister chimed in, "What the heck?" Confused, I asked them what was wrong. She pointed to the bathroom next to the small kitchen and said, "You literally just went to the bathroom." At this point, I was beyond freaked. I went to the bathroom and I pressed my ear against the door. Sure enough, I could hear someone washing their hands inside. I shook it off and did a reality check, counting my fingers. 10 of them. I wasn't dreaming. I knocked on the door, and from inside I heard my own voice calling out, "All righty." I jerked back from the door, heart pounding. I went back to my family, who were just across the hall, and they were all staring at me, pale and speechless. The air felt thick, like something was wrong, terribly wrong. Then, behind me, I could hear a door clicked open. My breath caught. I didn't dare turn around, but I could hear footsteps moving toward the staircase. Slowly, I turned, just in time to see a figure in my clothes, my exact clothes, disappearing up the stairs. Black velvet flats, identical to mine, clicked against the steps as it vanished around the corner. Frozen in place, I couldn't move. My family sat there, just as horrified, as if they didn't know whether to believe their eyes. I froze, paralyzed with fear, goosebumps creeping up my back. It took me a minute before I could move. My sister's face drained of color as she shared her own experience. She explained that the day before, she woke up and noticed I wasn't in my bed, but she could hear noises coming from the bathroom. She saw me walking down the hall in my pajamas and called out to me, but I didn't respond. When she returned to our room, I was still asleep in my bed. Freaked out, she didn't tell anyone until now. Fast forward 2 years later, my cousin now had a 6-month-old baby, and we were catching up over tea. I told her about the strange experience my sister and I had at the hotel, and she froze. "That happened to you too?" she asked, her voice trembling. I felt goosebumps return to my arms. She then shared her own eerie story. She had woken up one morning, walked downstairs, and saw her fiancé, now husband, sitting at the table eating cereal. He greeted her and said he was going upstairs to get something. After waiting for a while, she grew concerned and went to check on him. She found him still in bed, fast asleep in his pajamas. If you found these stories as terrifying as I did, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And if you've ever had a creepy experience of your own, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Stay safe, and thanks for watching.